Okay, so ready for a deep dive into AI in medicine today? We're really going deep on this one. We're going to be looking at this Fabio Di Bello guy. He gave this whole lecture about how these large language models, like ChatGPT, the one everyone's talking about, he thinks they could totally upend healthcare as we know it.
Yeah, and he's not talking about just like faster appointments or anything.
Oh, no. No, way bigger.
Di Bello's talking massive upheaval, like fundamental
Like
change.
paradigm shift kind of stuff.
Exactly. Like, okay, think about when humans discovered fire, right? Or invented the wheel.
Yeah.
Those weren't just upgrades, they changed how humans fundamentally operate. Di Bello argues AI's impact will be even more substantial.
Bigger than fire, huh? I'll admit, I was a little skeptical at first, too, like, come on, really? But then I got into this lecture transcript you sent over.
That's something else, right?
Di Bello doesn't just throw out these huge claims. He actually backs them up with examples and everything. For instance, get this. He talks about AI totally revolutionizing, like how we even study consciousness. Now, that seems like a stretch, I got to be honest. How does that even work?
Okay, so it's about pushing those boundaries of how we think about thinking, Di Bello's argument is, if we can build AI that convincingly simulates human thought, even if it doesn't understand like we do, not really just the fact that we're trying, forces us to re-examine what makes our own minds unique. It's like, imagine trying to rebuild a car, right, from scratch, but you've never really looked under the hood before.
Oh, okay, I see where you're going with this.
You might not get every detail perfect at first, but in the process, you learn a ton about how cars work, how all the parts fit together. So it's kind of like reverse engineering the human mind in a way.
So it's not just about the AI being a tool. It's about what building that tool teaches us about ourselves. Okay, I'm starting to get it now.
Exactly. And that leads us to how this all plays out in medicine, practically speaking. You had that great example in the transcript, right? ChatGPT being used on an actual medical case.
Yeah.
And not just any case, a complex neurological one, even published in JAMA, which is a pretty big deal.
Right. What got me was ChatGPT wasn't just spitting out diagnoses like some kind of futuristic medical vending machine or something.
Right.
It was going back and forth with a doctor, exploring all these possibilities just like you'd see in a real medical consultation.
That's the exciting part right there. But we got to remember, ChatGPT isn't actually thinking like a doctor, not in the way we understand it. It's more like, imagine a super-powered version of that autocomplete feature on your phone.
Okay, yeah.
But instead of just predicting your next word in a text, it's predicting whole medical conversations based on this massive amount of medical knowledge it's been trained on.
So it's like a medical student who memorized every textbook ever, but has never actually, seen a patient. Like full of info, but maybe missing that real-world experience.
Oh, that's a good analogy. And it highlights both the potential and the limitations, right?
Totally.
ChatGPT can process information way faster than any human, but it's only as good as the data it learns from. And that kind of brings us to the big question, trust.
And Di Bello really hammers this point home, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah.
He even calls it the trap of trust, which is a great way to put it. We see ChatGPT answering all these complicated medical questions, and we start thinking, wow, it must be right. But then, bam, he hits us with these examples where he gets things totally wrong.
Yeah, it can be a little unnerving, for sure.
To say the least.
He uses this term, hallucinations, which sounds kind of spooky when you think about it.
It really does.
But it basically means ChatGPT is so good at predicting what should come next in a conversation, it can just invent information without even realizing it's wrong. Like, think about those times you confidently misremember something, but in a really high-stakes situation, that's kind of what's happening.
Okay, see, that's way more serious when it's about your health and not just misremembering what you ate for breakfast. And it gets even more complicated when we're talking about AI actually connecting to EMRs.
Oh, right. EMRs, electronic medical records.
Yeah, like directly plugging in.
That's where it gets really tricky. How do we make absolutely sure it's accurate? How do we protect patient privacy at that level? These aren't just tech issues, Di Bello argues. They're massive societal ones.
So it's not as simple as like computer says yes or computer says no. There's so much more to think about. We need to make sure these systems are accurate and ethical and protect people's privacy. It's a lot to unpack, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And Di Bello doesn't shy away from the potential downsides either. He even uses this phrase, feudalism 2.0, talking about how a few tech companies could end up controlling all the access to this powerful AI.
Feudalism 2.0. Okay, that's a little ominous. It's not just about quicker diagnoses. It's about power. Who controls the information? Who gets to decide what's right in healthcare? Di Bello really throws down the gauntlet with that phrase.
He does. And that provocative statement of his about doctors and librarians, that's where things get really interesting.
Oh, you mean the one where he says doctors and librarians who use AI will replace those who don't?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one definitely made me sit up and listen. Sounds kind of dire, honestly. Like he's saying AI is coming for everyone's jobs.
Well, that's where Di Bello nuances his point. He's not saying AI will straight up replace doctors or librarians. Not entirely. He's saying that the essential skills to even be a good doctor or librarian, those are going to fundamentally change.
So it's less about being replaced and more about adapting.
Exactly. Like he highlights critical thinking, being able to really analyze what the AI spits out, knowing its limitations. Those become absolutely key for both professions. Think about it. A doctor who can use AI to go through decades of medical research in seconds versus one who's still flipping through textbooks, who do you think is going to be better equipped to help you?
Okay, yeah, that's a powerful image. It makes you realize AI in medicine isn't just about the tech itself, it's about power. Really, who controls this knowledge? Who has access to it?
Precisely. And this isn't just about doctors and librarians either. It's about all of us becoming more, I guess you could say, tech savvy, but not just in using the tools, but in understanding how they shape the information landscape, especially when it comes to our health.
Right, like it used to be you needed to know how to read a map to get around. Now you need to know GPS, sure, but also how it chooses your route, what biases might be built into that.
Exactly. And that's even more important in medicine, right? Where there's already so much information, even specialists can have a hard time keeping up.
Wait, tell me about it. You go online to research one symptom, and suddenly you're down this rabbit hole of medical jargon, and everyone's got a different opinion.
And that's where Di Bello suggests this AI ability to analyze insane amounts of data. That could be the game changer. Imagine getting a diagnosis and then bam. With AI help, you've got access to every relevant case study ever published, but tailored to your specific situation.
Whoa, so you're saying AI could personalize medical research to that extent? Like having a team of researchers working just for me, that's incredible. But of course, it brings us back to those ethical concerns we were talking about before.
Exactly, you got it. Who gets access to this personalized research? How do we make sure the AI isn't misinterpreting stuff? Weighing those benefits against the risks, it's crucial.
No easy answers, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And it's only going to get more complex as this technology gets more powerful. It's kind of like we're standing at the edge of this whole new world, and we got to figure out the rules as we go.
And that's exactly what makes these conversations so important. It's not just tea about the tech, but about how we, as a society, choose to use it. What kind of future do we want to create with this?
It's like we're holding the keys to the future of healthcare, and we got to make sure we steer it in the right direction.
And that takes us to another really interesting question that Di Bello brings up. What happens to the experts? You know, the doctors, the librarians, in a world where AI can access all this information so easily? Does it make them obsolete or, more important than ever?
Right, because it's easy to think, oh, if a computer can diagnose me, why even bother seeing a doctor?
Mm.
But like we were talking about before, it's about more than just cold, hard facts.
Right.
Healthcare, it's about that human connection, having someone explain things in a way that makes sense to you specifically, navigating those gray areas that AI might miss.
Exactly. And Di Bello argues that's where human expertise becomes even more important. Doctors need to become skilled at interpreting what the AI spits out, spotting those potential biases or errors, explaining those limitations to patients. It's about using AI to enhance their judgment, not replace it.
So it's like anyone can punch numbers into a calculator, right?
Right.
But it takes a mathematician to actually understand the equation behind it. So the AI might be the calculator, but the doctor is still the mathematician, using their expertise to guide the whole process.
That is a perfect way to put it. And this isn't just about doctors either. Di Bello makes a similar point about librarians. They actually become even more vital as guides in this age of information overload. They're the ones who help us navigate that sea of data, spot the misinformation, and critically assess what tools like ChatGPT are telling us.
It's like instead of being the gatekeeper of a physical library, they become these expert mountain guides in this vast, overwhelming landscape of information. They're the ones who help you avoid the dangerous path and make sure you reach the summit of knowledge safely.
Precisely. It's a total shift from guarding information to making it understandable, usable. With so much data out there, the ability to curate, to filter, to analyze, that's what becomes truly valuable.
And Di Bello actually gives some real-world examples of this happening right now, which is really cool. Like, he talks about how AI is helping researchers find patterns in these massive data sets, like connections that would have taken humans decades to uncover on their own. That's speeding up scientific discovery in a big way.
Oh, yeah. And he mentions these AI-powered search engines that don't just find research papers, they actually summarize the key findings, even translate that super complex jargon into plain language. It's making cutting-edge research understandable, not just for other doctors, but for anyone who's interested.
That's what's so exciting about all of this. It's the democratizing power of it. Imagine if it's used responsibly, it could actually give everyone equal access to the information they need to make informed health decisions, no matter what their background is.
It's a powerful idea, but Di Bello is careful to point out that it's not going to happen automatically, We
Yeah.
have to actually be intentional about it. We have to design AI that promotes equity and accessibility, not just efficiency.
So we can't just get swept up in all the excitement without being realistic about the potential downsides.
Absolutely. And those conversations need to be happening now, not later, before these technologies are so embedded in healthcare that it's almost impossible to change course. It's our responsibility to get this right for ourselves and for future generations.
It's like we're at a crossroads, and the choices we make now will determine whether AI takes us toward a more equitable, more accessible healthcare system, or if it just reinforces the inequalities that already exist.
It's a sobering thought, but it's also motivating, right? Because it means that we, as individuals and as a society, actually have the power to shape the future of healthcare.
Okay, now I'm fired up. So Di Bello didn't just leave it at that, right? He offered some ideas for the future, some exciting trends that he sees emerging, like AI becoming even more deeply woven into every aspect of healthcare, from how we diagnose and treat diseases to how we discover new drugs.
Right. He envisions this world where AI can analyze your genetic makeup, your lifestyle choices, even your environmental exposures, all to create these hyper-personalized treatment plans. He even talks about AI predicting your risk of developing certain diseases before any symptoms even show up. It's like having a team of health detectives working behind the scenes to keep you healthy.
Okay, so that's taking personalized medicine to a whole new level. It's like having a crystal ball that can tell you about your future health and give you the power to make changes now to prevent illness later on.
Exactly. And Di Bello believes this is going to fundamentally change the doctor-patient relationship. It's no longer about the doctor being the sole authority, but more like a guide, a partner, helping you navigate all this complex information and make informed decisions about your own health.
So it's less doctor knows best and more like a two-way street. The doctor's like a medical navigator, helping you chart the course for your own health journey. I like that.
Di Bello even suggests this is going to change how doctors are educated. They won't just need clinical skills, but also this fluency in the language of AI. They'll need to understand its potential, its limitations, and how to integrate it seamlessly into their practice.
It's like in the past, doctors had to master the stethoscope. Now, they need to master AI as this new kind of stethoscope for the 21st century, one that can see deeper and further than ever before.
Precisely. And that same principle applies to all of us, really. As AI becomes more integrated into our lives, we need to develop at least a basic understanding of how it works, its potential, and its risks. We need to be informed users, not passive bystanders, just along for the ride.
So it's not just about doctors and scientists. It's about all of us becoming more AI literate, more aware of how these technologies work and how they're shaping our world.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that AI is not some distant force out there. It's something we're creating, something we interact with every day. The decisions we make now, they're going to determine whether it enhances or undermines our well-being.
No pressure, right.
Yeah.
But Di Bello doesn't just leave us with these huge abstract ideas. He gets into how AI is already making a difference in the real world. Remember earlier when we were talking about how overwhelming it can be to try to make sense of all the medical information online? He talks about how AI has the potential to cut through all that noise and deliver truly personalized insights.
Right. He uses the example of AI being used to analyze a patient's unique genetic makeup, their lifestyle, even environmental factors to develop truly individualized treatment plans. He even talks about AI predicting a patient's risk of developing certain diseases before any symptoms appear.
So we're talking about like a crystal ball for your health, aren't we? Giving you the power to actually take proactive steps, make choices that could prevent illness later down the line. It's a totally different game than just waiting around and reacting to symptoms once they pop up.
Exactly. And this isn't some far-off futuristic fantasy either. Di Bello talks about how this is already being used to personalize medicine in really remarkable ways. For example, imagine being diagnosed with a rare disease, right? And then with the help of AI, you suddenly have access to every case study, every clinical trial, every piece of relevant research that's ever been published, but it's all tailored specifically to your unique situation.
Wow. Talk about feeling empowered. That's like having a whole team of researchers working just for you, compiling this personalized medical textbook that outlines all the latest findings and potential treatment options. It's incredible when you really think about it.
It is remarkable. But of course, with such powerful tools come some really important considerations. Who has access to this personalized information? How do we guarantee that it's being interpreted accurately and used responsibly? These are questions we need to seriously grapple with as a society, as AI becomes more and more integrated into our healthcare system.
Absolutely. But it's not just about those big picture futuristic scenarios. Di Bello also gets into the nitty-gritty of how AI is already being used to improve healthcare right now. One area that really caught my attention was his discussion of medical imaging analysis. He says AI is already being used to detect tumors in mammograms, identify signs of stroke in brain scans, even diagnose diabetic retinopathy in eye images, and it's often doing it with greater accuracy than human specialists.
It's true. AI has made incredible leaps in medical imaging. These AI-powered tools are trained on huge data sets of labeled images that allows them to pick up on those really subtle patterns, the anomalies that might be missed, even by the most experienced human eye.
It's like having an extra set of eyes. But these eyes can see things at a level of detail we could only dream of before.
Precisely. And what's really exciting is that this technology has the potential to make healthcare way more accessible, especially in those areas where there's a shortage of specialists. Imagine a rural clinic that doesn't have a full-time radiologist on staff. They could use these AI-powered tools to get preliminary interpretations of medical images. That could potentially save lives by speeding up the diagnosis and treatment process.
Okay, now that's what I call democratizing healthcare. That's what it's all about. It levels the playing field and gives people in underserved communities access to the same level of expertise that you'd find in these big city hospitals.
Exactly. And that democratizing potential goes way beyond medical imaging, too. Di Bello also talks about how AI is being used to develop virtual assistants that can provide personalized health coaching, answer patient questions, even remind them to take their medications. It's like having this dedicated health advocate right in your pocket.
Okay, so we're not just talking about high-tech diagnosis and treatment anymore. We're talking about using AI to empower patients to take control of their own health, to be more informed and engaged in their own care. I like it.
Exactly. And these AI-powered assistants aren't just like glorified chatbots or something. They're sophisticated tools that can analyze data from wearable sensors, track medication adherence, and provide personalized feedback and encouragement. And they do all of this while still maintaining patient privacy and confidentiality.
So it's like having a 24/7 health coach, cheerleader, and medication reminder all rolled into one. Talk about personalized care. But Brandon, this is a big but for me. What about the human touch? We're so used to interacting with technology these days. But when it comes to our health, sometimes you just want to talk to an actual person, right?
Absolutely. Di Bello addresses that concern directly. He's very clear that AI should never be seen as a replacement for human interaction, for empathy, in healthcare. He sees a future where AI augments and enhances the doctor-patient relationship. It should free up doctors from those more mundane tasks so they can focus on what matters, providing compassionate care and building those meaningful connections with their patients.
So it's not about AI versus humans. It's about them working together, side by side, to create a healthcare system that's both technologically advanced and deeply humane.
I like the way you put that. It's about finding the synergy between the two.
Exactly. And that brings us to another key theme that Di Bello really emphasizes: human-centered design in the development and deployment of AI in healthcare. Now, we've thrown that term around a few times, human-centered design, but what does that actually mean when we're talking about AI?
It means we need to design these systems to be intuitive, easy to use. They have to prioritize the needs, the values, the experiences of both patients and healthcare providers. It's about making sure these AI tools are transparent, explainable, and that they build trust, not suspicion.
So it's not enough for these AI systems to just be technologically brilliant. They also have to feel right to the people using them. They have to work in a way that makes sense and respects human values.
Exactly. And this is where collaborating with technologists, clinicians, ethicists, even the patients themselves, that all becomes so essential. We need to make sure AI is developed and deployed in a way that actually aligns with our ethical principles, that it respects patient autonomy, and that it promotes equitable access to care.
So it's not just about the what of AI, it's about the how. How it's designed, how it's implemented, how it's used in a way that benefits everyone.
Precisely. Because at the end of the day, AI in healthcare isn't just about the technology itself, it's about the people it's designed to serve.
Well said. Now, you mentioned earlier that Di Bello sees AI transforming drug discovery. Now, that's a field where progress can feel so painfully slow, so full of dead ends. What kind of revolution are we talking about here?
This is where things get really exciting. Traditionally, developing new drugs has been a long, expensive process. We're talking decades, billions of dollars, lots of dead ends along the way. But Di Bello highlights how AI is dramatically accelerating every single stage, identifying those promising drug candidates, designing clinical trials, even predicting which patients are going to benefit most from specific treatments.
So it's like taking that long and winding dirt road of drug development and paving it over, turning it into a superhighway, speeding up the entire journey from the lab bench to the patient's bedside.
Exactly. Imagine AI algorithms, right?
Yeah.
Sifting through these enormous databases of genetic information, chemical structures, clinical trial data to pinpoint the most promising drug targets, predict their effectiveness and safety. That's happening right now.
It's like having a team of these superpowered research assistants working 24/7, crunching numbers, connecting dots that human researchers might miss entirely.
It really is. And it's not just about discovering entirely new drugs either. Di Bello also talks about something called drug repositioning, which is basically finding new uses for existing medications.
So it's like discovering this hidden talent, this superpower, in a medication that was originally designed to treat something else entirely. I like it. I'm all for repurposing.
I like the way you think. And AI is proving to be so valuable in this area. These algorithms can analyze mountains of data, medical literature, patient records, genetic data, all to identify potential connections between existing drugs and new disease targets that human researchers may have completely overlooked.
So instead of starting from scratch every time, trying to develop a brand new drug for a specific disease, we can use AI to see if we already have something sitting on the shelves that might hold the key. That's brilliant.
Exactly. It has the potential to save so much time and money and significantly reduce the risk. These repurposed medications have already been through rigorous safety testing.
It's like finding a shortcut on a treasure map. We get to bypass years, sometimes decades, of research and development and go straight to testing whether this old drug could be a breakthrough treatment for a totally different condition.
That is a perfect analogy. And this is just one example of how AI is poised to completely revolutionize the drug discovery process. This could lead to more effective treatments, faster development timelines, and potentially cures for diseases that have plagued humanity for centuries.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I'm getting pretty excited about the future now. It really sounds like AI has the potential to unlock this golden age of medical breakthroughs, leading to treatments and cures that we once thought were impossible. But of course, we can't just talk about the good stuff without acknowledging the potential downsides.
Of course not. No conversation about AI, especially when we're talking about something as crucial as healthcare, is complete without addressing the ethical side of things.
Right, because with great power comes great responsibility.
Right.
Right, and we're talking about a technology that has the potential to completely reshape the very foundations of healthcare. So let's dive into those ethical concerns. What are some of the potential pitfalls that we really need to be aware of?
One of the biggest concerns, and we touched on this a bit earlier, is the potential for algorithmic bias. If the data that's used to train these AI systems is skewed or incomplete, it can lead to results that are biased, and that could end up disadvantaging certain groups of people.
So, for example, if an AI system is mainly trained on data from patients of a particular race or socioeconomic background, it might not be as accurate or effective for patients from other backgrounds. And that could lead to misdiagnoses, inadequate treatment, and ultimately it could actually worsen existing health disparities.
Exactly. And it's not always about intentional bias in the data itself. It can be really subtle, unintentional biases in the way that the data is collected or labeled or even interpreted. That's why it's absolutely crucial to have teams of developers, ethicists, and clinicians who are diverse, all working together to try to identify and mitigate those potential biases throughout the entire AI development process.
It's like checking your blind spots when you're driving. You might not see them yourself, but having multiple perspectives and those safeguards in place can help ensure that you don't miss anything crucial.
That is a great analogy. And this isn't just about preventing harm either. It's also about making sure that the benefits of AI in healthcare are distributed fairly.
So we've got to make sure that everyone, no matter their background, no matter their socioeconomic status, has equal access to these potentially life-saving technologies.
Absolutely. And that's going to require A real effort, a concerted effort from policymakers, healthcare providers, and the tech developers themselves. We have to be mindful of the potential for AI to create new forms of health inequity and work proactively to prevent that from happening.
It's about being mindful of the potential consequences, right?
Yeah.
Both the intended ones and the unintended ones. And we have to constantly be asking ourselves, who benefits from this technology? Who might get left behind? And how can we make sure that everyone has a fair chance to live a long and healthy life?
Beautifully said. And that leads us to another really critical ethical consideration: data privacy and security.
Okay, yeah, think about that for a minute. These AI systems, especially the ones being used in healthcare, they rely on these massive amounts of really sensitive data, right? I mean, we're talking about medical records, genetic information, even data from those wearable health trackers that are becoming so popular. How in the world do we make sure that all of that information is protected and used responsibly?
It is a huge responsibility, and it's not one that we can take lightly. Di Bello really emphasizes the need for strict data privacy regulations, strong security measures to prevent unauthorized access, breaches, and misuse of that information. He argues that patients need to be fully informed about how their data is being used, and they need to have the power to control who has access to it.
Transparency is key, right? Patients need to know what's happening with their data, who has access to it. How is it being used to develop and train these AI systems? No more burying it in the fine print and hoping nobody notices?
Absolutely. And it's more than just about checking the boxes for legal compliance. This is about establishing trust and making sure that patients feel confident, secure, knowing their data is going to be handled responsibly, ethically.
So we need to build these ethical considerations into the very fabric of these technologies from the ground up. Patient privacy and data security can't be afterthoughts. They need to be core principles that guide every stage of development and every stage of deployment.
Precisely. And this leads us to another important consideration: the potential for AI to actually be used in ways that could undermine patient autonomy.
Okay, now that's an interesting one. Could you elaborate on that a bit? What does patient autonomy even look like in this age of AI-driven healthcare?
Well, think about it. Imagine a future where AI systems are making treatment recommendations that are so accurate, so spot on, that doctors and patients begin to rely on them almost exclusively. In that scenario, there's a real risk that human judgment, intuition, even just basic patient preferences could be overridden by the algorithm.
So it's like the AI becomes the ultimate authority and we lose sight of the individual patient, their values, their beliefs, their goals.
Exactly. Di Bello really emphasizes that AI should always be a tool that empowers, never dictates. It can provide information, recommendations for sure, but ultimately the decision-making power has to remain with the patient and their doctor.
It's about finding that balance, that sweet spot where AI enhances human judgment and expands our options, but it never overrides our fundamental right to make choices about our own bodies, our own health.
You got it. And that requires careful, thoughtful consideration of how we design these systems, how they're integrated into those clinical workflows, and how we talk to patients about AI's role in their care.
It's about making sure AI serves humanity, not the other way around.
Well said. And it's a good reminder that while all these advancements in AI are incredibly exciting, we can't lose sight of the human element, the ethical considerations, and the importance of making sure these incredibly powerful tools are used responsibly, equitably, and for the benefit of all.
I couldn't agree more. And speaking of the human element, I think there's another potential challenge that we haven't really touched on yet: the psychological impact of AI on both patients and healthcare providers.
That is a really important point. It's one thing to talk about all the technical and ethical considerations, but we also have to think about how actual people, how they're going to feel about and respond to this new reality, this AI-driven healthcare.
Exactly. How will patients feel about essentially trusting their health to a machine? Even if it has been proven to be extremely accurate, will they feel heard? Will they feel understood? Will they trust its recommendations?
And on the flip side, how will healthcare providers adapt to this new landscape? Will they feel like their skills are being devalued? Will they be comfortable relying on the AI's recommendations, or are they always going to feel the need to second-guess the machine?
It's almost like we're talking about a whole new level of bedside manner here. But this time, it's not just about how doctors interact with patients. It's about how we design these AI systems. They need to be empathetic, they need to be trustworthy, and they need to be sensitive to the emotional needs of the people who are using them.
Absolutely. AI in healthcare can't just make sense on paper. It's got to make sense on a human level, too. It needs to feel right, not just be right.
And that requires a really deep understanding of human psychology, something that often gets overlooked in the rush to develop and deploy these new technologies as quickly as possible.
Precisely. We've got to remember that AI, at the end of the day, is a tool, and just like any tool, its effectiveness depends on the skill and the intention of the human who is using it.
So while we've spent a lot of time today talking about the incredible potential of AI to completely revolutionize healthcare, we also have to acknowledge that it's not a perfect solution. It comes with its own set of challenges and complexities. It's not a magic bullet, and it's not going to solve every single one of our problems overnight.
You're absolutely right. But I do believe that if we approach this new frontier with open minds, with a spirit of collaboration, a real commitment to ethical development, and a deep respect for that human element that we keep coming back to, we can actually harness the power of AI to create a healthier and a more equitable future for everyone.
Okay, so with all of that in mind, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on what individuals, people like our listeners, what can they do to prepare themselves for this new AI-driven future of healthcare? It can feel really overwhelming, like we're all just along for the ride, whether we like it or not.
That's a fantastic question. And honestly, I think the first step is the simplest one. Stay informed. Don't shy away from learning about AI, even if it seems kind of intimidating at first. There are so many incredible resources available these days to help people understand these technologies and what they might mean for our future.
So don't be afraid to geek out a little, do your research, and be curious.
Exactly. And beyond just understanding the technology itself, it's important for people to become more involved, more engaged in their own health and in their own healthcare decisions.
Be proactive, ask questions, and don't be afraid to advocate for yourself.
Yes, 1,000 times, yes. The more informed and engaged we are as individuals, the better equipped we're going to be to navigate this new landscape and to make sure that AI in healthcare is used in a way that benefits all of us.
It's like anything else in life, right? The more you know, the more empowered you are to make the best choices for yourself and your loved ones.
Precisely. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to something as important as our health.
You know, it's funny how this always circles back to knowledge, right? We started talking about ChatGPT, maybe diagnosing patients, and now it's like AI could give everyone the tools to understand their own health in ways we never even imagined.
It's the core of Di Bello's point, I think. AI isn't just changing the practice of medicine, it's changing our relationship with knowledge itself. And that has these ripple effects way beyond the doctor's office.
Totally. It's like AI is this giant magnifying glass. Suddenly we can see things that were always there, but too complex, too nuanced to really grasp before. And that can be exciting, but also a little intimidating, right?
Absolutely. AI is like any powerful tool, huge potential for good, but also potential for harm. And nowhere is that more true than in healthcare. We've talked about the benefits, but what about those risks? What keeps you up at night thinking about AI in medicine?
Honestly, it's that fear of the unknown, those unintended consequences we can't even predict yet. Like what happens if we become too reliant on these systems? Do we lose something essential about the human touch in healthcare?
That's a big one, and Di Bello brings it up directly. He talks about the potential for AI to actually erode the doctor-patient relationship, which is all about trust, empathy, making decisions together. We can't let AI turn healthcare into some kind of cold, transactional, data-driven thing, you know?
Right, because even if an AI can spit out the quote-unquote perfect treatment plan based on your data, it's still a human being who has to actually live with that decision, with the side effects, the potential outcomes, all of it.
Exactly. And that's where those principles of human-centered design, the ones we keep coming back to, they become so essential. We need AI systems that are intuitive for both doctors and patients to use, systems that build trust instead of trying to replace it entirely.
It's not just about the AI being smart. It's about it feeling right to the people actually using it. AI that makes that human connection stronger, not weaker. Okay, but even if we get the design right, there's still the cost factor. Will everyone have equal access to these potentially life-saving technologies? Or will AI-powered healthcare just become another luxury that only the wealthy can afford?
The million-dollar question, right there. And it's something Di Bello acknowledges head on. He knows developing and implementing these systems, it's expensive, at least in the short term. But he argues that we need to zoom out, look at the bigger picture, the long game, and consider those potential cost savings.
So, like investing in renewable energy, right? Might seem pricey up front, but over time, you're saving money and creating a more sustainable system overall.
That's the idea. By making healthcare more efficient, cutting down on those unnecessary tests and procedures and catching things earlier, AI could actually lead to some major cost savings over time.
So it's not just about who can afford it today. It's about creating a system that's more sustainable and equitable for everyone in the long run. But even if AI can help us save money, there's still the issue of jobs, right? If machines start taking over tasks that humans are currently doing, what happens to all those healthcare workers?
It's a valid concern and one we need to address head on. But Di Bello's point is, we can't look at this as some battle of humans versus machines. He sees AI as this opportunity to reimagine healthcare roles, not just eliminate them.
So it's not AI replacing doctors and nurses, but working alongside them, freeing them up to focus on the things humans do best, like compassionate care, building relationships, making those complex judgment calls that require intuition, empathy, all of that.
Exactly. We can use AI for those more routine tasks like data entry, initial screenings, all that stuff. Then, healthcare professionals have more time to spend with their patients, providing that personalized guidance and really focusing on the human side of healthcare.
It's like having an AI assistant there to handle all the busy work so you can focus on what truly matters, the patient right in front of you. Okay, but even if AI creates new opportunities in healthcare, we're going to need a pretty major shift in how we train the next generation of healthcare professionals, right? What skills are they going to need to thrive in this AI-driven world?
Di Bello actually lays out a pretty clear vision for this. He says those future healthcare workers, they're going to need a solid foundation in both medicine and technology.
So not just brilliant doctors or skilled surgeons, but tech-savvy too.
They'll need to be fluent in AI, basically. Understand how these systems work, how to interpret the output, how to spot potential bias, errors, all of that.
So AI literacy becomes as important as medical literacy itself.
In a way, yes.
Right.
But Di Bello emphasizes those human qualities. Empathy, clear communication, critical thinking skills. Those become even more important, not less.
It's not either or, it's both and. Finding that synergy, right?
Right. The future of healthcare isn't about humans or our machines. It's about humans and machines working together in a way that combines the best of both. So we can build a healthcare system that's both incredibly advanced and deeply humane.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
But it requires all of us to think critically about AI. How do we design it? How do we use it? How do we regulate it to make sure it's benefiting everyone?
It's a call to action, really. For everyone listening, stay informed. Be part of these conversations, advocate for the kind of future you want to see, because, as Di Bello reminds us, the future isn't something that just happens to us, it's something we create.
Powerful stuff. Well, on that inspiring note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive into the world of AI in medicine. It's been amazing exploring all of this with you.
It's been a pleasure, truly.
And to everyone listening, thank you so much for joining us on this journey. We hope this episode has sparked your curiosity, maybe challenged some assumptions, and definitely got you thinking differently about the future of healthcare.
Keep exploring these ideas, keep asking those tough questions, and keep the conversation going. The future of AI is not set in stone. It's up to all of us to shape it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And on that note of collective responsibility and hopeful possibility, we'll say goodbye for now.
Until next time.
Thanks for listening, everyone.